Ms. Houchin, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you, Ms. Sue, for testifying before us today. As our committee begins consideration of WIOA reauthorization this Congress, I'm grateful that we're able to process some of the progress that has been made or lack thereof over the past few years. As you know, 40% of able-bodied adults are not engaged in the workforce. Every time I'm in the district, I hear more and more from employers that they're looking for workers, they're looking for employees. You, more than anyone else, have had a front row seat in the failures of the administration to reach our full workforce potential. So I'm going to need you to answer for some of those problems for me and my constituents back home. So there are accountability provisions under the WIOA Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act that have not been implemented as Congress intended. Under the department's regulations, the state can miss its agreed upon performance by 50% and still be considered a success. To put this in context with the state of California's agreed upon level of performance, if just 39% of WIOA participants are employed in the second quarter after exiting the program, DOL would consider that a performance success. What grade would 39% be in school?
Thank you very much, Congresswoman, for that question. I do believe that we have to support training programs, but also hold them accountable, right? Make sure that, for example, they are actually providing training for in-demand jobs.
What grade is 39%?
I mean, I'm sure
the letter grade for 39% would be an F. Aren't we setting the bar too low when we say that 39% performance is considered a success? Yes or no? Is that setting the bar too low?
I mean, Congresswoman, I'm not familiar with the exact metric that you're talking about, or how it's set. I don't. For example, if you're telling me that we are not in our implementation of WIOA complying with what Congress says, that's something that I would take very seriously.
Okay.
I've pledged full fidelity to the law. I think that's very important.
In October 2022, the WHD published a notice of proposed rulemaking rescinding and replacing Trump's independent contractor rule. We've heard some about that today. In its place, DOL proposed a 6-factor economic realities test to determine whether a worker is, quote, economically dependent on a company under a totality of the circumstances. In essence, saying that if they are economically dependent, they have to be employees and not under a 1099. Shouldn't the American people have the freedom and the opportunity to decide what work environment is best for them?
Thank you very much for that question, Congresswoman. So the proposed rule by the Department of Labor does adopt a multi-factor test. It's not just one factor.
I don't have much time. I understand it's a multi-factor test, but let me give you a real-life example. So I was a stay-at-home mom for 5 years. And during that time, I was an independent contractor under a 1099. And I was only operating under a 1099 model with one entity. So under these definitions, I would have been qualified as economically dependent and under the rule proposed by DOL, unable to participate in the workforce under that model. That doesn't seem very American to me under our terms of freedom to decide for ourselves what is best for us and our families. And in fact, that if the DOL rule had been in place when I was a stay-at-home mom, I would have chosen not to engage in the workforce as an employee. Will you commit to protecting the independent contractor rule for people like me?
Congresswoman, I certainly want to restate that bona fide independent contractors will always have a place in our economy, should have a place in the economy, and play a very, very important role.
Will you turn away from the proposed rule?
Well, our proposed rule is consistent. It's not 6 factors that we invented. It's factors that are based on decades of federal.
Do you support the Trump administration era rule?
We rescinded that rule as being inconsistent with
I would encourage you to continue to turn away from efforts to undermine the independent contractor opportunities for American citizens. One other thing I want to ask you with the limited time I have now is, you have said repeatedly, as passed by this body, you want to do only what this body intends you to do. But we haven't ever passed a bill yet taking away opportunities for independent contractors, yet your agency is implementing such a provision by rule. Is that correct?
Our rule is not intended to take away livelihoods at all,
But did Congress pass a
Congresswoman.
bill on that?
Well, so.
No, they did not.
Well, it's our job to enforce the Fair Labor Standards Act, and the rule that we have proposed is consistent with decades of federal case law interpreting when
Yet it
somebody
was
is
overturned, correct?
Well, our rule is a notice. It's not a final rule yet, so it hasn't been challenged. It has not been overturned, but it is a rule that, in the stage that when we
Ms.
noticed
Sue,
it was consistent with federal case law.
I would ask that you answer Congresswoman Houchin's question in writing. Thank you very much, Ms.
Thank you.
Wild.